COVID ready. I normally like standing on a chair actually. Can I make this chair? Can I make this on a chair? Whoops. So I won't speak for long. I will later, but just quickly, I just want to do a little introduction, welcome you today. Thank you so much for coming, especially to the comrades who've come from outside of Stoke South. Having you here gives us the troops on the ground to win Stoke South back for Labour, which we believe we can do. We're 650 votes away from it. So thank you for being here and being committed in that conviction with us. Like I said, I didn't know if I said it. My name's Sakina Sheikh. I'm a little bit brain frazzled this morning, I'm not going to lie to you. But luckily we've got some far more exciting and articulate people to speak to this morning/afternoon. I have to announce, unfortunately, Grace Blakely texted me this morning to say she's unwell and she can't make it. I know, but I thought that she's been running around the whole of the UK offering solidarity to CLPs, and actually it's no bad thing that we're missing her this morning. As much as she would have been brilliant, we've got some fantastic local speakers, and actually that's what will win Stoke South back for Labour. It's community organising, and it's having local folk tell the truth and tell the stories of why Stoke South is special and has been Labour for 75 years. And we only got a Conservative MP 2 years ago, so frankly that was just a bit of a mishap, and we're taking it back for Labour this Thursday. So it's brilliant, exactly. So I'm really excited that obviously we're going to start off by hearing from the man himself, Mark McDonnell, who is the PPC for Stoke South and has been working here since he was selected with communities, with charities, with grassroots organisations and with the amazing comrades on the ground to build a campaign, to build the infrastructure, to take this CLP back. We've also been joined by the brilliant Salma Yaqoob, who's the shortlisted Labour candidate for the West Midlands Metro Mayor, so we'll be hearing from herself as well. And we'll also be hearing from Becky Sargeant, who is the campaigns coordinator for Stoke South. She's an ardent local trade unionist. She's lived her whole life, and she'll tell you from a very personal perspective exactly how and why we're going to win Labour. We're going to win Stoke South back for Labour. And then I'll just be rounding off at the end just to give a couple of logistics. We can start by just making sure everyone's on the same page. Has everyone got a number? You were given a number when you got in? Yeah? Who hasn't got a number? All right, keep your hands up. Show me them higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go! I will get someone to come and give you, I was going to say go, but don't do that. We'll make sure we'll get you a number, but we'll do the logistics at the end, and we'll make sure that you're in groups before we go off, because today essentially is about getting the vote out. It's the final big push. We've got such an incredible energy with you all here today, so we're going to make the most of it, and we're going to win it for Labour today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mark McDonnell, the PPC for Stoke South. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Well, again, thank you for coming along. You know, Sakina has spoken, I think, 3 times at these events, and I've followed her. And even my wife says, actually, she's the better speaker than you are. And so when she says you've got more interesting people to listen to, in fact, you don't. Sakina's wonderful, and we're so proud to have her as part of our campaign. You know, Stoke and Stoke South is a beautiful part of the world. And I'm not saying that because I am the parliamentary candidate and I want to be the MP. I'm saying that because anyone who spends any period of time here will know how wonderful and how lovely the people are here. They will be delightful and they will be nice, but they will also tell you what they think, and they will tell you robustly what they think. But it is a wonderful part of the country, and I'm so proud to be the parliamentary candidate. But for those of you who don't know Stoke, it is an area where we had the pottery industry, which was central to Staffordshire, and it made this city centre of the map because great pottery in China went out from here all over the world. We know of names like Royal Doulton and Wedgwood. Those industries have collapsed now. Wedgwood is still operating, but really barely anything significant of what it used to be. The mining industry has collapsed and has gone, and the steel industry has collapsed and gone. The 3 main industries that fed this city and became really the heart and soul of our community has disappeared, only to be replaced by 0-hour contracts and an insecure employment. As a consequence of that and consequence of lowering wages, we have a growth of food banks and charities helping the most poor. We also have a situation where we've got legacy illnesses, those that worked down the pits for many years, or indeed in the pottery industries, the older generation now dependent upon health service and dependent upon government support. It is an area that has been left behind. It's an area that's been left behind by successive governments, by governments that seem to take the working class and the heart of our soul for granted. It's an area where we have a town which just down the road, where we have a high street where shops are closed down, where we have a Woolworths that closed down 15 years ago, still sitting there abandoned with the Woolworths sign above it. It's a city, it's an area where, as I say, the people felt that they're left behind, that nobody actually cares about them anymore. And no wonder they voted for Brexit. They voted for Brexit because, you know, if you're poor, you're going to be poor in Europe and you're going to be poor outside of Europe. If you've been left behind, you're going to be left behind in Europe and you're going to be left behind outside of Europe. People are angry, and they manifested that by voting to leave. And so people are annoyed and people are angry that we haven't left, frankly, that we haven't followed through on what they voted for. But they voted for change, and this is the important thing. They voted for change. And they're not going to get change into the Conservative government. The very thing that they voted for, a better health service, a better school, more investment, is not going to happen under a Conservative government. And so my job for the last 2 years is trying to convince people that yes, you want change, but the way to get change is to have a Labour government, to have a leadership and a manifesto that is going to deliver the very change that you have been asking for, that you demanded, that you screamed out for, that roar that came from the northern cities and the Midland cities that said, we're not happy anymore. The way to meet that is to get investment and to get better jobs and a better health service. Now, what's going to happen? What is Labour promising? We have the Green Revolution. And that's so important. Of course, we know that's very important globally, but what does it mean to the everyday person that lives around here? Now, those, again, who don't come from here will not know this, but we have a motorway that runs straight through the heart of the city. Why is it? How can you have a dual carriageway that links the M1 to the M6 right through the heart of the city, surrounding which are schools? And we have a massive increase in asthma and child illness, and also those elderly people that I talked about earlier suffering from pollution. We need to start rethinking the way that we have structured this area to ensure that the pollution, and it's not just the fact that we have simple cars coming back and forwards. We have trucks that are constantly whizzing through the heart of this community. And sometimes when there's a problem on the M6, which often happens, or the M1, they get stuck here, pumping out their diesel into this city and causing an enormous amount of problems. And that's something we've got to be focused upon. But actually, it's more than that. And I talked about investment earlier. We, or the Labour government, has specifically chosen this area to invest in under the Green New Deal. You see, as you all know, hopefully within 20 years we're not going to have diesel and petrol vehicles and cars anymore. They're going to be electric. And with that comes the need to have batteries and equipment. And here, the Labour Party, the Labour government have decided that we're going to be building the next new generation facilities for those cars, creating 30,000 jobs here. But not just that, also the investment that comes into building and all the stuff that comes into building an infrastructure and a factory, and the programs needed will go with the shops and the community and rebuilding and more investment. And that's going to happen. And that's at the heart of Labour's new Green Deal. And so we are offering something to the city. We're not just saying, what about the environment? We're saying, you know what, you're going to benefit by what we're doing here. So we've got exciting times, but we've got to overcome that anger that still exists. Let me say this. Those of you who will go out on the streets will see this. When people voted to leave, they honestly thought that the following day they were gone. And the anger is because they don't understand why we haven't gone. They just don't understand it. And so we've got to overcome that, and we've got to understand that actually they were misled by a Conservative-led, Boris Johnson-led campaign, that they were lied to and they were misled. And actually, it's about getting the best deal from them. And what I say is that the country is broken, that they're fighting in Parliament, but they're also fighting in the street. We had a great Labour MP murdered over, in essence, this issue. And we've got to bring that country together. And as much as you want to say about Jeremy Corbyn, who I like, actually, when it comes to this issue, he's pretty moderate on this issue, because he's trying to bring the country together and say, you know what, the way forward is to get this deal and bring it together. And that's the argument we're going to have on the doorstep and the discussion. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having that discussion, because I think when people see that, on the whole, not always, they get it. So we need change, we need investment, we need to deal with the anger and confront the anger and understand the anger, not patronise, but say, yeah, we understand why, because you've been left behind, and offer them something which is hope and change, and that we're the only people that can deliver it. So once again, thank you for coming. We're going to fight for every vote, but I have no doubt whatsoever that on Thursday we're going to win this. And we're going to win it because it is right and only proper that we have a Labour MP here, not a Conservative MP. Thank you. Now, what do some of you, I'm sure many of you probably appreciate, is I'm just the candidate, okay? I get told what to do and where to go. The people, the real people that were at this campaign are the people behind the scenes, and that's led by one person here, who those who are here are local members will know her. Those are not. She is being the engine behind the campaign. And someone I have to never argue with, because I always lose. And so I'm going to hand over now to the election coordinator, my election coordinator, Becky Sargeant.
Hiya. I'm Becky and I'm from Stoke. Lived here all my life and I love this place. I've been a Labour Party member since 2015 and it's safe to say I had minimal input in anything at the start. In 2017 I was gutted, along with a lot of other people in this room, to find that I was waking up to a Tory MP for the first time in such a long time. But really I couldn't complain, because I didn't really do much for the campaign at the time. So last year, I decided to get involved, and I've learnt loads on how the Labour Party is run, and I've met some amazing people who I'm really lucky to call my friends. But there's this one word that people keep using. They use it in text messages and emails, they greet one another with it. Now, I obviously knew the dictionary definition of this word, but it wasn't a word I use. And I was a little bit perplexed at how often it was used. But how wrong was I? Because the word I'm referring to is solidarity. I've seen it, and I understand it now. I see it today with the people who've travelled miles to help us in this small CLP in Staffordshire. I've seen it with my local Labour colleagues who've taken into their homes volunteers who've come up to help our campaign. I've seen it over the last 5 weeks, people who've given up their time to go out in the rain, the hail, the wind, to knock on people's doors. But I see it right here and right now, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So why do we need a Labour government in Stoke? Well, we deserve better here. We've been forgotten and we've lost our way. So on Friday, we might wake up to Jeremy in number 10. I'm hoping Mark's on the M1, down to Parliament as our MP. But there'll be no need for people to use food banks. Homeless people will hopefully have somewhere to live, and the NHS will be in safe hands. There'll be a start of a green economy with jobs around here for local people. And on Friday morning, we will have hope. So now it's time to get out the vote. So in solidarity, I thank you.
See what I mean about better speakers than me, I have to say. So it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce the next speaker. That's by you, that's you, by the way. The next speaker. Salma Yaqoob is someone who I have never met before today, but someone for many years I've been watching and following. Salma Yaqoob, and she's also running for our mayor, so that's fantastic. There you go.
I'm not as tall as Mark. I'm going to need a chair. You'll be right over here. Yeah. Friends, comrades, we are literally a few days away from a Labour victory and a Labour government. And that's going to be down to those door knocks, to talking to people on a one-to-one basis, smashing through the fog of lies of this right-wing extreme government. The Tory party has always been the party of the few and the privileged, but it too has actually become hijacked by extremists who even Tory MPs of decades cannot associate themselves with. And I am not complacent, because I know how ruthless and effective they can be. They own the majority of the so-called free press. When we're on those doorsteps, we hear those lies and fears reflected back, and our message is the very opposite. It's one of hope, of practical change, and that's what they fear. Because for the first time, not just in one generation, I think in many generations, we have an offer of something transformational, something which will deliver for the many. People have prayed for, yearned for a manifesto like the one that this Labour Party is putting forward. So we should go out today with confidence, with energy, with a big smile, because this is the best Christmas present that we could hope for, to have Jeremy Corbyn going into 10 Downing Street, because when he does that, it will be all of us going into 10 Downing Street. It will be those people who did not have a voice, those people who were taken for granted, who were marginalised, who were demonised, the people who were forced to take on the brunt of the fallout of the totally catastrophic economic disaster, which they didn't bring on, which their families didn't bring about, but were made to suffer for when it was the bankers and the elite who took us down that economically disastrous path in the first place. And 10 years later, we're in a situation where the rich have got richer and the poor and most vulnerable are left poorer and even more vulnerable. There has not been any economic justice. There has not been any trickle down. These have been lies, and we see the effects. Growing up, I was born in this country. Growing up, I have never seen so much visible homelessness. You can't go to any city centre, never mind any major high street, without seeing literally people freezing on our streets in one of the so-called richest countries in the world. And that's apart from the climate disaster. That was man-made, human-made decisions. That wasn't the climate emergency which brought that on. And it was the decisions callously made, deliberately made by this Tory government. And we have to seize this opportunity to kick them out. We have to seize the opportunity to turn our anger, our frustration, and it is a righteous anger, and make no apology for it. You have to be heartless if you are not feeling angry about the situation our country is in at the moment. But for once, it is in our hands. Yes, we're not in an even fight, but it doesn't make our fight less right. In fact, it makes it even more important. And I want to echo what Becky says. It is about us, the ordinary people. The fact that you guys have come out, woken up on a Sunday morning, of course we'd all have preferred a lie-in, had a hot drink at home, but you're here, you've come with that intention to be there for other people, to get our message of hope out on those doors. And actually we're very lucky here in Stoke, because not only are we here fighting for a fantastic manifesto of hope, you have a brilliant candidate. Mark has been a stalwart. He's not somebody who's just come along yesterday asking for your vote. He has fought on issues of equality, justice and peace through the hard times as well as the easier times. More important that we get Mark elected. And I want to finish with this. These words, Green New Deal. This is how ambitious this Labour manifesto is. We're not talking about tinkering. We're not talking about triangulation. We are talking about transformation. Because our planet is in peril. And this manifesto is about people and the planet. It's not about either or. And in Stoke, we will have real jobs, well-paid jobs, which are needed if we're going to have this carbon revolution. We need insulation in homes. Labour has promised 27 million homes will have insulation. We need people to put that in. We need new green homes that will take architects, builders, admin staff, real jobs. Not this zero contract hour nonsense, which creates more insecurity, which makes poor people fight over crumbs, which means people have to resort to food banks because they don't know whether they can pay that mortgage or that extortionate rent each month because they can't even rely on hours that they are wanting to work. This is a broken economy. I'm not saying the system is broken. The system is working very well for the people and by the people it was set up for. But it's time that we had a system which worked for the many. We're going to ban fracking. We're going to have a Green New Deal. We're going to have a fair internationalist foreign ethical policy, something which we have not had for decades. And that is all possible. It's within reach. That's why they're going crazy. That's why they're trying to demoralise us. And the enemy isn't Corbyn, actually. He's just been made the target. It's actually us. What they're scared of are people who've woken up, people who can see through the lies, people who are saying we're not going to be divided. We are going to care for our neighbours. We are going to stand up for the marginalised. We are going to stand up against racism. We are going to stand up for people who may not be well. We are going to stand up for public services and NHS that we are proud of and we are not going to sell off. We are going to fund an education system from the cradle to the grave for retraining, just as we have the NHS from the cradle to the grave. These are the kind of bold policies, the policies of hope. So let's get out there. Every single doorstep, every single step that you take today is going to make a difference. 600 votes. Just the people in this room, your action today, would have made that difference. back in 2017. Not only does Stoke deserve and need Mark MacDonald as a Labour MP for this region, we are going to get it with your help and with your action today. Thank you very much.
All right, I am not going to attempt to follow that. Thank you so much, Salma. I think ballots will be dropping to Labour members in the new year. You're on the shortlist to be the West Midlands Metro Mayor, so any of our comrades who are locally based, we know that we should be ticking Salma's name in the new year. Someone who has a vision for the future, someone who understands inherently that climate justice is intertwined with economic justice, that climate change, the causes of climate change are inherently intertwined with the causes of poverty, that actually a failed economic system that was built on capital, that was built on slavery, that was built on colonialism, that was built on extraction and extraction and extraction, inevitably will lead to climate change because it pollutes and it consumes at a rate that is insatiable. And it is the same economic system that has brought us poverty. It is the same economic system that has enabled the Tories to create a programme of austerity. So when you're on the doors today, feel brave. Most of you will be doing get out the vote, so you'll have friendly faces. But feel brave, remind them that actually they know all too well that it is Thatcher who decimated communities here. It is Thatcher who began neoliberalism, that created the bedrock of the economic capitalist structure that we have, that has perpetuated climate change, and that their fight for jobs and that their fight for prosperity and their fight for dignity is inherently intertwined with the dignity of this planet. Both are suffering because of the extractive economic model that we have, and the only one that offers real change and a real configuration to that is Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. It is not, like we heard from Salma, tinkering around the edges. It's saying we demand a wholesale reconfiguration of the economy. And let me tell you something, folks. I have had the privilege of getting to know the people of Stoke South here. They are beautiful, kind-hearted people. And I said this last week when we had Owen up. The generosity of their kindness is like I have never seen before. When they ask you how you are, they are invested in the answer. They listen to the answer. And for those of us who maybe don't have the pleasure of living here more often than just a few weeks as a Labour legend, actually, we realise how much of a rare commodity that is. People who are invested in your growth and invested in how you are. And actually, that's how we will ultimately win. We, of course, are going to have a Labour government on Thursday. But what I have realised more than ever is we need to build people power for the long term. It needs to be grassroots, it needs to be community-led, and actually the climate transition gives us that opportunity. We should be knocking on doors and saying, how are you, mate? And listening, and asking them, what do you need for a better life? And if it's a living wage for all, then we say a Green New Deal or a climate revolution or climate justice is an inherent part of a living wage is an inherent part of that climate justice. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did in the States. That's why living wage is inherently part of the American Green New Deal. So we should say mental health services, housing justice, and anything that we knock on the doors and people tell us is what they need becomes our demand for the economic change, for the climate transition, and for climate justice. And that's what we've been building here today in Stoke. So, without further ado, let's get to action, because that's what we're here to do, right? We've had amazing comrades come from far and wide because we're going to get the vote out, we're going to win us a Labour government, we're going to win us a Labour seat. So, on to the practicalities. We're going to send you out for 2 hours, do a lot of door knocking. Who hasn't got gloves? Great, so I don't feel guilty sending you out for 2 hours. We are going to get you back here for 3 p.m. We're going to order you all pizza. So do come back, have a cup of tea, have some pizza with us. If people have energy, we can talk more about the Green New Deal and climate justice and how we build Green New Deals, Green Industrial Revolutions and climate justice local to our context, how we create community organising as an inherent part of achieving that. So that'll be at 3 p.m. pizza, but you have to do your 2 hours of door knocking first. And then we're going to send you back out afterwards from 4 to 6 for the final round of door knocking. Now, today is going to be get out the vote. So we've been working really hard, having difficult but brilliant conversations, and now we want to square up our votes. We want to make sure everyone we're talking to gets out on Thursday. Check with them if they need a lift. If they do, ask them if you can share their details, write down their details, ask them to text 3 friends. If they're still on the fence, you know what to say. The NHS goes down incredibly well on the doorstep here, as it should do, because it's one of the most, inspiring, fantastic socialist institutions that we have in this country, and our candidate, Mark MacDonald, spent many years working in the NHS, so he is invested in ensuring its growth and its fully renationalisation. So I think always bringing that up is really important. What I'm going to do, particularly for those of you who are local, we did this when Jeremy was here, we did this when Owen was here, is I'm going to give you my number. Everyone feel free to take it in case you're out and about and there's trouble, just give me a call. But particularly if you're local, we've now got a WhatsApp group of 60 people who are committed to building long-term the core, the brilliant activist core that we have here. And you've heard from Becky how incredibly blessed we are to have such, I say we are, they're like family now. I'm like, I live here. But I want to give you my number, especially if you're local. Please text me, say, I can help, and text me your name, and I'll add you to that WhatsApp group. If you're not local, just take my number and call me later if you have any issues. But if you're local, please, and by local I mean you can get here for a canvassing session on a Saturday. Not next week, we'll probably be all in bed, but the week after that perhaps. So my number is 07, show me your phones, who's got their phones? Excellent. 07 93 087 2640, and I'll go again. Yep. 07 93 087 2643. So text me, I can help, in your name.